let's talk about the laws and taxes that should exist regarding car manufacturers. Now, this is going to be in terms of relative taxing to other already existing taxes. So we won't be talking what exactly should be the specific tax rate, but taxes that would actually help improve the quality of automobiles is what I'm getting at. So first, let's look at the current situation in manufacturing. Cars are turning more into computers than just old-fashioned machinery, and companies catch on to these trends to the extreme. The result of this is too much technology in cars that cause issues in reliability with cars. This is true for pretty much every company out there. And it makes cars harder to work on, so therefore more expensive to work on. It makes cars break down faster, therefore costs people more, wastes more resources, etc. And the only benefit we're really getting from this is more luxurious features and better gas mileage. And those do not pay off the cost of what we're accumulating. So how do we stop this? All right, because the consumers are wanting, more of these features because of social trends, socioeconomic trends. And car manufacturers are happy to go along with it. And there's also another issue is planned obsolescence in cars. It's not just what I previously mentioned. So it's all these factors which are making cars more expensive and making cars break down prematurely, more than they did in the 90s and early 2000s. This is very problematic because as technology gets higher, things should be getting cheaper. That's the general rule. And of course, as you add more features, things are going to get more expensive. And within reason, that's okay. But at this point in time, cars should not be getting any more expensive than they were in the 90s and 2000s. So, the solution to this is actually pretty easy. And it's not going to come from the corporations, and it's not going to come from the people. And of course, it's not going to come from the government either, but it should come from the government, and this is what the government should do. I mean, it should come from all three sources, but in this case, it's going to have to be the government. Because the corporations have turned into psychopathic organizations, and the people are just basically monkey consumerists that don't know any better. So, what do we got to do? All right. Pretty simple solution, as I said. You just simply adjust taxes to the car manufacturers based on how often they break down. And we're going to be getting into a few other issues of the problems of these cars breaking down prematurely. So, whenever a car breaks down on the highway, it needs to be recorded by the police, obviously. And within this information should be the make and model of the car. Now, if it's less than 15 years old, or 15 years old and less, whatever, something like that, this would be noted in statistics. And it would be compared to the amount of those cars sold. And you could do relative taxing in another sense, such as cars with higher rates of breakdowns on the highways are going to be taxed more. Eventually, this would make car manufacturers create better products, basically, more reliable products. And when you get to this point, then you can just have a cutoff point where you would just have if you meet a certain quota in your percentage, of our ratio of cars breaking down or whatever, you can meet these tax deductions as a corporation, or tax reductions, or whatever, however you want to call it. Basically, the end result is corporations or car manufacturers that create more reliable products that aren't breaking down on the highways, they will get tax reductions. They will not pay as many taxes. That would be the end result. So everybody wins. The consumer wins. The car manufacturers win as long as they are good companies, and the police win because they don't need to be dealing with all these broken down cars. And the only people who are going to be losing business are the tow trucks, of course, but I guess it's not always good for everybody. But that is just kind of a common sense. It's just kind of something that's common sense that could happen. And obviously, the repairmen are going to be cashing in as much either. So that is what needs to be done to reduce this nonsense in the car industry right now. It's just absolutely crazy. It shouldn't have ever got to this point, but obviously, everything in this society is just batshit crazy, and so it's to be expected. So when these cars are breaking down on the highway, it's a liability to everybody, because it increases the amount of the potential of accidents, and not only from cars just being on the side of the road, but cars breaking down in front of you and you've got to avoid them, and it's wasting resources, like I say before, because if you make something that lasts a long time, that's saving resources. Obviously, maybe gas mileage won't be that is great, but that's a completely different topic, all right? Because the whole road structures are they're built purposely and efficiently, but that's a completely different conversation for a different day. So we don't even need to think about that right now. What we need to think about is building reliable vehicles. And we know that we already know how to do this, okay? Many car manufacturers in the 90s and early 2000s were building very reliable vehicles, and they're not anymore. Why? That's ridiculous. They should be getting better, not worse. The German companies were doing better. The American companies were doing better. The Japanese companies are still the best, but they're not as reliable as they used to be. That is asinine. That should never happen. So let's just reverse this with some simple taxes. And one last thing about the liability on the road is when these cars are breaking down, especially in extreme weather, the fire department has to deal with this. The police have to be out there on the road dealing with this, and they're risking their lives for this just because of these ridiculous consumer socioeconomic trends. And just this last month or something, I think two firefighters died here in Wisconsin over something like this. And this kind of stuff should be reduced to the maximum. Just completely unnecessary. So outside of the resource waste is just simple things like that could be reduced with just a little bit of common sense. Should have never got to this point. I shouldn't even have to be talking about this, but like other things in this crazy ass society, I just have to.